Good morning, council members, staff, and members of the public. It is Tuesday, November 18th, and I would like to call the meeting of the Policy and Strategy Committee to order and begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We'll begin with announcements, acknowledgements, and recognition. And I'd like to kick it off with a special recognition, as it is the last time for one of us here up around the table. Joanne Powers, this is her last day around the table. She's with us till next week. And while she loves recognition, not really, Joanne has been with us for 39 years. She had a little break in between where she thought she'd try another organization, but she came right back where she has fit in ever since. And while you might be the executive assistant to the mayor, you're an assistant to all of us. You're the one who keeps us on track, make sure we have a spot to lay our head down when we go on conferences, bugs us about meals, meetings, and always make sure that we have our presence in the community. So while thank you is not enough, on behalf of Mayor and Council, we'd like to give you these and thank you for all that you do. And I expect to see that in the minutes. Right? Word for word, yes. So thank you for all your years dedicated to municipal service. Are there any other announcements, acknowledgements, or recognitions? Seeing none. Public input. Is there anybody here that would like to speak at public input? Seeing none, I'd just like to remind people that public input is one of several opportunities for the public to engage with council. Residents are welcome to use the public input portion of the meeting to share their thoughts with the council on municipal topics that are important to them. Up next is changes and approval to the agenda. Mr. McEwen.
Thank you, Chair. We'd like to make two changes to the agenda this morning. The first is to remove item 9.2.1, Communities in Bloom. We're going to reschedule that to December 2nd Finance Committee because of time constraints this morning. And we'd like to add an item under 12.2, Contract Negotiations under Section 22.2E of the MGA.
Can I have a mover for the agenda with those amendments? Moved by Mayor McLean-Weil, seconded by Councillor Burns. All those in favor? Agenda is approved unanimously. We have minutes from October 21st, 2025. Is there any errors or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, we'll call those minutes approved. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing no from staff. We have no presentations, referrals from council, so we're going to move right down to staff reports and Recreation, Parks and Tourism. And up first, we have the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee, and we have Trudy Payne, our Director of Recreation, Parks and Tourism, presenting on that item.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. As the Deputy Mayor has indicated, I'm here to give a report concerning the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee, and in particular into recommendations they brought forth to this Council in May of 2024. So just to give a little bit of background, at that particular meeting on May of 2024, we had a presentation by Coastal Action, which was the organization that we had contracted to compile the data that was received from the water quality program that was instituted over a 6-year period, because we had COVID during that period of time where we couldn't go and do water collection due to the restrictions. At that same meeting, the chair for the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee made a number of recommendations for council's consideration as their term of their mandate was completing, but they had recommendations to continue to help move the water quality program forward, and so that the data that they had gathered over the last 5 years was not lost. So as typical with council is council does not make a decision when a presentation is made. And so I was asked to bring a report back to council concerning those recommendations. So I brought a report back at the September 10th meeting to council in reference to the 5 requests or recommendations that were made by the committee, which can be found on page 2 of your report, but I will highlight them very quickly. One of the recommendations or requests for council's consideration was that the municipality consider conducting a 3-year reoccurring water sampling of Sherbrooke Lake and tributaries, adopting the same regime that was used for the baseline program to ensure that the original intent of the water quality monitoring program was maintained and in place. Part of that committee's mandate was to do some education, and so they didn't want to lose that either. So their recommendation was to look at establishing an education initiative that would target lakeside property owners to help them understand the actions that they can take to protect the lake. And then the other recommendation was to develop terms of reference and develop an education committee that would take on this education initiative. And what was stressed at that particular time was that this wasn't just education around Sherbrooke Lake, it was education around all lakes. And then the 4th recommendation that was brought forth was specific to the municipality of District of Lunenburg. And I'll go back a little bit. The Coastal Action and the Monitoring Committee also made a similar presentation to the municipality of the District of Chester, who was a partner at the time with the water quality program. So the 4th recommendation was specific to the municipality, requesting that the municipality consider a lakeside zone for the portion of Sherbrooke Lake that resided within the municipality district of Lunenburg, as Chester had established a lakeside zone for their portion of Sherbrooke Lake. And then the final recommendation that was presented by the committee was to write to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, asking them to continue their biannual scientific reviews concerning blue-green algae, or Cyanea, I can't say that, bacteria blooms, that both municipalities to urge the province to support this. We had members of our committee attend this biannual scientific review that the province had held, and they found it very educational and helpful. So the request was to ask the province to do that. So I brought forth at the September 10th these recommendations, and at that meeting, council gave several directions. The first direction was for staff to go back and speak to the municipality of the District of Chester to determine what partnerships may be possible in conducting a water quality monitoring program on Sherbrooke Lake every 3 years before you were prepared to make a final decision. And they also directed staff to reach out to the municipality of the District of Chester to determine if they had any interest in establishing a joint committee whose primary mandate was to undertake an education initiative. And then the third was to write the letter to the Department of Environment requesting support for the biannual scientific reviews on blue-green algae. So the letter was sent to the Department of Environment and Climate Change on October the 18th, 2024. I just recently resent the letter a couple weeks ago because we have not yet received a response, and I believe that was in October of 2024 that we sent that letter. And I know Chester sent a similar letter in February, and I just called their staff person yesterday to confirm whether they had received a response from the minister, and they too have not received a response yet. So when I resent the letter, I asked if we could have a response. But to date, nothing at this point in time. And at that September 10th meeting, a motion per se was not made in reference to the lakeside zone. However, we were directed as staff to advise the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee that lakeside zoning would be taking place as part of, at that time, MODL 2040, now known as our municipal-wide planning. And the committee was advised of the council's direction on this. As I did to follow and reach out to the municipality of the District of Chester, and they took this to their council meeting on February 27, 2025. And we were notified of their decisions. So the decision that came from Chester is they made the decision not to proceed with any type of water quality monitoring on Sherbrooke Lake at this time. They did not want to establish a joint education committee. It was alluded that they would develop a public education program in-house with staff. They determined that would likely be their best approach. And again, I'll repeat, they did write a letter to the Department of Environment and Climate Change. We did receive an email from their Director of Community Development and Recreation on February the 28th, informing the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee of their decision. The Director noted that while MODC values the 5-year baseline data collected, Council chose not to pursue additional monitoring or an education committee at this time due to existing priorities and limited capacity. So I know that was very long-winded, and I know that some of you weren't around the table, so I'm trying to succinct the history as much as I can. But the discussion before council today really comes down to those final two requests by the committee, because the other three we have responded to in some fashion. So it's to proceed with conducting the water quality program for Sherbrooke Lake every 3 years without the District of Chester's funding. In the past, the District of Chester financially contributed $7,000 and MODL budgeted $23,000. So we had $30,000 to help with support the committee, coastal action, and the work to do the water monitoring program. And the second part of the discussion is to establish an education committee without the District of Chester to educate lakefront owners in understanding and adopting best practices to protect the lake. And again, the intent of this education committee when it was presented would be to educate all lakeside property owners and users, not just those on Sherbrooke Lake. So the main reason why the committee was recommending that you do the water quality program every 3 years was to ensure that the data collected over the first 5 years remains relevant. And that is why the committee is recommending it. If you don't do a reoccurring program, that baseline data would be lost on Sherbrooke Lake. So the recommendations from staff are to council are to recommend that council looks at conducting the water quality program reoccurring every 3 years, so that the work of the committee, I know this is in my conclusion and I tend not to follow my reports, but the volunteers played a significant role in ensuring the water quality program happened. It was volunteers that went out on their boats between the months of May and October, I believe, at least once a month to get that the vial of water or whatever was necessary to send to the lab, and which Coastal Action then synthesized the information from that lab and to that scientific review and the report the council received. They also went out when there was like a heavy rainfall event. Unfortunately, we did not suffer any of that this summer, but they would go and do special water collection on special weather events to see if there was any changes. So and they made sure that that got to the lab in Halifax. So the work over the time and the money invested, that's part of the reason why the recommendation from staff is being brought forth, so you don't lose that baseline data, and supporting the recommendation of the former stewardship committee. The second recommendation being brought forth by staff is the education was a significant portion that the committee did, but in speaking with our climate action team staff, they felt that an education initiative around what lakefront owners or what residents in general can do to protect the lake falls well within the climate action plan, and feels that this is something that they could take as part of the work plan. And hence, you'll see the recommendation from staff is not to establish an education committee, but to undertake that work in-house through our climate action staff team. So this, concerning the strategic focus, continuing to monitor the quality of Sherbrooke Lake, providing education to lake property owners and residents, and advocating to learn from the research being conducted on blue-green algae aligns with the priorities outlined in the Climate Action Plan that Council has adopted, and also helps contribute to the quality of life, which is another strategic priority of Council. The budget financial implications is if Council decides to proceed with the water quality program every 3 years, funds would need to be allocated in the budget to cover the full cost, a portion that was previously shared with the municipality of the District of Chester. And I know somewhere in my report, if in order to fall in line with every 3 years, we'd be looking at needing to conduct that water quality program in 2026. So there would be implications to this operating budget coming up in 26, 27. And if Council also decided to establish a lakefront education committee, funds would need to be budgeted annually to support that committee. Whatever direction Council decides, staff time would be required to support the Education Committee, but also would be required to support the water quality monitoring program. Climate change and sustainability, that's a lens that has been added to our staff reports. So from that, using that lens, protecting Sherbrooke Lake supports Council's commitment under the local Climate Change Action Plan 2030 by safeguarding water quality, biodiversity, and ecosystem services. Reoccurring monitoring will help identify climate-related risks such as rising temperatures and blue-green algae blooms, while education initiatives can encourage sustainable land management practices by property owners. These actions strengthen community resilience, advance evidence-based policy, and ensures Sherbrooke Lake remains a valued natural asset for future generations. So from a strategic communications point of view, whatever decision is made today by Council, if any, we would need to notify, or I feel we would need to notify the members, or the former members of the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee who brought these recommendations forth. Concerning impacts to the work plan, again, I reiterate, if the water quality monitoring program is conducted every 3 years to begin in 2026, this will involve staff time in seeking an organization like Coastal Action to undertake the work. And to take staff resources to develop the education initiative. So as always, we like to present alternatives because we recognize you don't always take our recommendations. So the alternatives concerning the water quality monitoring program is you could choose to discontinue any type of water quality monitoring program on Sherbrooke Lake, or you could direct staff to look into a water quality program that could be applied to a number of lakes in the municipality, looking for a model that is reflective of a community development model, which we're looking at, and representatives of the watersheds that we have in the municipality. Concerning the Education Committee, you could look at establishing an Education Lake Stewardship Committee as recommended by the committee, as opposed to undertaking the recommendation of staff, or you can make the decision not to provide any kind of education program at all. So in conclusion, the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee have submitted recommendations, including ongoing monitoring, public education, zoning considerations, and provincial advocacy on blue-green algae. The Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee members were all volunteers other than Coastal Action, and it was volunteers that helped ensure the water quality monitoring program ran smoothly, providing boats and human resources to get the samples to the lake and to the lab and eventually to the Coastal Action who presented the final report. Their recommendations aim to ensure the work they have contributed is not lost, and that Sherbrooke Lake continues to be protected through conducting the water quality program every 3 years, education and engagement, looking for regulations to be put in place around lakefront, and continuing ongoing advocacy with the province to continue those biannual reviews. So now, if there's any questions, I know that was long-winded, but again, I wanted to give some of the history.
Thank you, Ms. Payne, for that report. And for anybody that might have missed any of that or wants to go back to it, everything that you've outlined is in the agenda package, and you can find that information there. And before turning it over to questions or comments, I just want to let The public and council members know that the decision that is made today on whether or not to continue with a water quality monitoring program does not determine whether or not development would happen on Sherbrooke Lake. It's two separate topics that we're talking about here. So with that in mind, we will start with Mayor McLean-Weil.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think it's really important, first of all, that we, and it's easy for me because I wasn't part of any of the previous discussion around around Sherbrooke Lake, to think of this just from the water quality point of view and the science that's tied to water quality. And the reason I wanted to speak on this is that we have now a history of the quality of the water at Sherbrooke Lake, and we have had a group of volunteers who've been committed to doing this. If we don't continue to monitor that water, we've lost the science that may be useful to us as we go into the future. And sometimes base data like what's been collected, we don't necessarily know now what it might be used for. But given that our climate is changing, we've experienced droughts, we are looking at other implications related to climate that may be tied to lakes, and we have a lot of them in our district. I think it is important that we continue to monitor the quality of the water there. There may be implications of other groups in our community, if we're thinking about community development, that may want to start a similar kind of project. My big concern is that we not lose the data continuation that we've already invested in the past, knowing full well that it may be very useful to us in the future. And I just wanted to make that, to kind of raise our thinking about this to the science implications of this, and how that may be necessary as we go forward in our decision-making in the future.
Councillor Hubley.
Thank you. I agree with what the mayor has said, but I would like to see this program, the second alternative that you have, that it could be applied to a number of lakes in the municipality. I would like to see some lake-specific feedback. Every day I go on Facebook in the summer, people are posting pictures of, is this blue-green algae in this lake, in this lake? So I'm always a supporter of educating everyone. So that part of it's okay, but I would really like to see this include a number of lakes.
Councillor Oikel.
Thank you. I really like the idea of the in-house education so that it can go to all other lakes and residents. I do have a question. We have a few lakes that are bordered on other municipalities. Would this education material also be allowed, and can it go to other residents that live in other municipalities around those lakes, even though it's created by our municipality?
How do you stop it?
Well, I mean, we would be creating the information, so I'm just wondering whether or not we will also be giving it to everyone, even though they're in another municipality. I hope that we can do that.
So I haven't given a lot of thought around what the education initiative would be, but I suspect we'd be using other, like several media sources such as Facebook, our website, we might be looking at radio, we might be looking at newspaper, and our municipal app. So I would think that residents that are reading the newspaper, looking at our Facebook page, or listening to the radio would get the same information. Of course, if a neighboring municipality reached out and said, you have an education program, could you share what's happening? We tend to be we don't charge for our hour, maybe we should, but we're very open to sharing information. So like if Queens was to call up, we'd say, yeah, this is our education, this is the messaging. If you'd like to use some of it, for sure. If Chester did the same thing, sure. Or Kings County, I'm thinking of some of those counties that neighbor us. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
No, yeah, thank you. It's just that I was concerned whether there was some legality with us allowing, like if we had a pamphlet or something, is what I was more thinking of, like written material. Obviously, if it's in the newspaper or on Facebook, everybody's going to hear it and see it.
If it was in a brochure, we'd be more than happy to share that. We'd probably take that to some of our open houses and different things that we have to continue in our education.
Counselor Bell.
Thank you. The first motion that's being recommended here, I can't support. The second motion here, I can give some consideration. The council direct the sustainability staff to develop an education program because it can be used throughout the municipality. It can be used by people who live on any of the lakes, and I'd be glad to share it with other municipalities. After all, we did that with our coastal protection. We have done a program for several years, maybe at a cost of $30,000. If we are to continue, maybe then the costs should be shared. In September of '24, Municipal Council directed staff to have conversations with the Chester municipality to determine if a partnership may be possible. I like partnerships because people share costs, they share ideas, and sometimes sharing in the way things are done. MODC had no interest in sharing the costs. Let's be clear, MODL has assisted these lake residents for 6 years already. We do not or have not done this for people who live or have camps on Purnett Lake, Big Mushamush Lake, Hurdle Lake. These are all larger lakes around the municipality that have full-time homes on and cottages. Remember, valuable staff time is required for such projects, and we are constantly reminded of this as we assign them new projects. If those who live on Sherbrooke Lake want water testing and monitoring, let them cost share with MODL through an area rate, just like residents are expected to do with street lights if they want extra services. This would not be new for MODL. Council proposed a 5-cent area rate for those who own property around Fancy Lake in 1999 for water monitoring or rerouting backwash water from the Town of Bridgewater Public Service Commission water treatment plant, the plant that's located in Hebville. I don't want to leave those people who live on Sherbrooke Lake to be on their own. So I favor an educational program, cost shared 50% by MODL and 50% recovered by an area rate if it's aimed at only Sherbrooke Lake. If we want to start an education program and have our sustainability staff draw up guidelines and make a brochure that can be used municipal-wide, then maybe we should pay 100% of the cost. But if we're going to continue water monitoring program for one lake, then it should be cost shared 50% by MODL and 50% recovered by an area rate. I think this is a fair deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Smith and then Counselor Brooks.
Yeah, I'm not sure where to start now, but I do just want to make a point about investing in lakeshore communities. A lot of folks who live in these communities live on private roads that they pay for to upkeep themselves. They don't get garbage pickup door to door. It's at the end of the road. When I was canvassing, I got a lot of questions like, what do my municipal tax dollars pay for? And one asset that and also the other thing is that some of these communities are located very far from centralized services that we put a lot of money into. And I think this is an opportunity for us to invest further in a community-driven project to protect an amazing asset that we have in our communities. Sherbrooke Lake is, a beautiful lake. I think it's one of the largest lakes, one of the top 5 largest lakes in Nova Scotia. And the reports that came back from the testing was that the lake is healthy. We're so lucky. The lake is healthy, but it's vulnerable because of the pressures of development in the area. And I would really like to see this community-driven, community-led testing continue. I think citizen science is so valuable and important to build on. And as the mayor noted, with the changes in our climate, population, and the development trends that we're seeing, water monitoring is more important than ever, and we have this data. Why would we just, kind of let it drift off now? And Councillor Reinhardt and I attended a Lakeshore Health Day not too long ago at Pond Hook Lodge, and it was a really valuable day where municipalities were all coming together and talking about how are we going to protect our lakes. And citizen science-led monitoring programs are one of the ways that we can do that. And so I will be supporting us continuing to support this program on Sherbrooke Lake. I do agree with Councillor Hubley that a broader approach should be looked at in the future, but right now we're dealing with the question of this program right now. And as for the educational piece, I think it's really needed, and I would favor a regional approach, so that we're talking to some of those other municipalities that were gathered at that conference that we were at, because everyone's thinking about the same thing, and why would we reinvent resources that we could be sharing? And in particular, I think that we should be thinking about a regional approach because we share watersheds. We're all connected. And for example, Kings County, they do water testing in lakes in the LaHave River watershed where Sherbrooke Lake is. Like, the watersheds don't follow municipal boundaries. And they've had water testing there. They have one of the longest running citizen science water testing programs in the country. And I just think we could learn a lot from them about sustaining these programs, the value of these programs, and I've said a lot, but I feel quite passionate about protecting this program and its future.
Councillor Brooks.
I would really echo a lot of the comments around the table. I like the broader approach. I really will echo what Councillor Smith has said. I've seen a cost effectiveness of citizen-led science monitoring. They are the people on the front lines, and I'd love to find a way where we support this group, but that this group becomes a model for others to participate. I don't want us to be solely focused on one lake. If we're going to do this and create a water monitoring, let's try to find a solution for the entire municipality. I agree with Councillor Smith. Water doesn't care where the boundaries are. It'll do what it does. Our investment is as much to the lakes as to who are going to be around it. I know that sounds strange because it's the tax dollars that are going to pay for that, but those people will come and go and the lake will stay. So there's some foresight that we have to have about the future with that. It's disappointing that Chester doesn't want to participate in that. I concur with Councillor Bell that, I'd like to find other ways if we were going to be the sole financiers of this, that we get some compensation for that. On this particular issue, I want to see that group supported and elevated, and in terms of partnership, maybe there are even more partnerships to be brought in with that group. Maybe Dal Science, maybe somebody from a university wants to bring their students there and help, double down on that effort. But I don't really support all of this coming in-house. I don't want to see our staff take on a whole new list of things, and I don't want to see our staff take on the educational component. We can be great facilitators of this to the people in the community, and they can really spearhead this, and I'd love to see us support that.
That's all I have for speakers, so there is some options to put on the floor in front of us. Councillor Smith, would you like to put forward a motion?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask for a slight tweaking of the recommended motion. Can I put a motion on the table? To the Chair, Deputy Mayor Vino, and members of the committee, I move that the Policy and Strategy Committee recommends to Municipal Council that Municipal Council approve conducting a 3-year recurring water sampling of Sherbrooke Lake and tributaries, adopting the same regime that was used for the baseline program. I so move.
So for those wondering about the change, just you left off the final end of that. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Mayor McLean-Weil. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Bell.
Is there anyone that can give me an estimate of what the cost would be for a continuing program for 3 years?
I can give you a rough estimate. We budgeted $30,000 each year. We probably spent, depending on the year, between 25 and 30. But that's keeping in mind that we had the committee as well. Not so we were paying mileage. We were doing a few things of that nature. So it would really all depend upon how much the contract would be with what other agency, whether that's Coastal Action or not. But I would be safe to say that what we've budgeted in the past should be sufficient to move it forward.
So it's reasonable to expect it's going to be between $90,000 and $100,000.
It'd be 25 to 30 every three years. So if we were looking at doing it in 2026, I'd be looking at putting that amount in our operating budget. And then every 3 years, if it's continued, we would have to reassess the cost because, as we all know, things go up. But that would be, if I was given the direction this year, I would probably go and budget, quite frankly, $30,000 in this year's budget.
I just want to make sure council members are clear on that because there was some hesitation with the fees. So $30,000 every 3 years.
Once every 3 years, yeah.
Once every 3 years.
That helps clarify it.
Councillor Oikel.
If we were to pass this, what about the idea of putting together something for all the other lakes? What about that idea?
Again, I think that would have to be a direction that comes from council, and I don't want to be, but I'm assuming it would go within those number of priorities that council has developed, so it would be added, and then we would have to determine, based on what else we have on the plate, giving council a timeline of when this work could be undertaken, and it would, or what has to fall off the plate if this becomes a priority.
Councillor Moore. Mayor McLean-Weil.
Yeah, I think an important component of this that we need to think about is the volunteer piece. And there are lots of programs in our other programs across Canada and in our neighboring municipality of HRM and in Kings County where there are citizen science groups that work as volunteers to collect this data. And I think if we're going to look at some of our other lakes, we have a lot of lakes, like over 100, over 130 lakes. I don't know that we'd want programs in all of those, but there are key lakes that we may want to look at. But I think an important component of this is that we have a volunteer group willing to partner with the municipality on doing the work. Because that's the reason that Sherbrooke Lake has been successful, is that there were volunteers that had a lot of expertise in this area and were prepared to train and be trained to do the work. So I think us saying we're interested in this, I'm open to that, but I think we have to also recognize that we need to foster that interest at the community level to see whether there'd be willingness to do that. And that, you know, when we talk about community development, then it is about what Councillor Bell is saying, that then there is some, you know, partnership between the community, whether it's their volunteer effort and supported by the work by some resources from our municipality. So I think there's a whole component to this that we could explore. I think the decision today is around funding Sherbrooke Lake, and the issues that Councillor Hubley has raised and Councillor Smith and others have raised around other lakes is something we can explore to see if that's something we can help to initiate and foster at the community level. But I think really we have to think about the importance of that volunteer piece in how we would go forward with a water program.
I agree with the mayor in saying we have to maybe separate the two. Like right now, we're dealing with Sherbrooke Lake specifically, because if we get into all the other lakes, that's a topic we'll have to have because it'll involve more resources than just around the table. I have Councillor Burns next.
I'm just saying my comments for the record as much as I am for the other councillors at the table. I'm going to support the motion, and that's mainly because I don't want to take it away from folks who have it up there. I did hear from a number of folks East Covey Lake who had concerns about water quality during the campaign, and I continue to hear about it sporadically. So I know that they would love to have something more, and I wouldn't want us to take it away from them if they had obtained it. If anything, I'd like them to see how it's being done at Sherbrooke and if that's a model that's going to happen for them. So for me, it really is about if the residents that I have are coming to me saying we want more of this on our lake, I don't want to take it away from someone else. So that's why I'll be supporting this.
I do have one question, and Ms. Payne, you might be able to answer. Conducting a 3-year reoccurring water sampling, for how many years? There's no end date. So is it every 3 years until council decides to stop?
That is what I would say the intent of the motion is, and of course, council always has the ability to come back and revisit this and put another motion on the floor to say that, you know, based on this, and this, we're no longer going to be doing this every 3 years.
Okay. Councillor Bell, then Councillor Brooks.
You brought up the point that I have circled here. In the motion that went on the floor, it sounded to me like we were not just discussing 2026. The part I really have a problem with is opening the floodgate, saying it's reoccurring every 3 years. And you need to really consider what the cost of this is. We don't say this for other projects necessarily. So you should be very cautious if you accept that motion the way it's been put on the floor. I think that's almost like an omnibus bill, a little hidden gem in it. Be careful how you vote. If that's removed and you want to support just 2026, it may be more appetite for people to want to do that.
Councillor Brooks.
I think that the talk around the table has a lot to do with concern about our own constituency and our lakes, and how do we deal with that, and how do we deal with it in a financial way going forward. I would really like to see, if we support this stewardship committee, I'd like to see an opportunity where they come in and share that knowledge with anybody else. This is the kind of empowerment I want to see us do as a council. I don't want to see us do everything. I want to see us help empower and facilitate with other community groups. So if the Sherbrooke Lake Stewardship Committee has learned some stuff and gotten some knowledge and become successful, let's let them share that knowledge. I would be open to having a workshop day where folks who are interested in this for their own lakes come and let's share that knowledge and let's be the facilitators of that. And let's see, to Councillor Bell's concern, if we can't drop the prices on some of these things down by having the community involvement, by having these individuals who are passionate about the lakes they live on, as opposed to us. So that's, I will be supportive of the first motion. I will not be supporting the second motion because that's one that I want to see also go out into the community.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I just want to, remind people, we're approving a 3-year recurring water sampling, but we have to vote on the budget every 3 years. So it will come to us in this budget. 3 years later, it'll come in another budget. And if we are getting reports back on the water monitoring program and it doesn't seem like it's value for our money, if climate change suddenly ceases to be, maybe we just, shut it down. That's for a council in 3 years to discuss. But there's nothing in this motion that binds us in perpetuity to this program. But it does include the intent, which is that we have baseline monitoring and that it would be responsible of us to revisit that every 3 years. And just to, reemphasize Councillor Brooks' point, that Lakeshore Health Day that we went to, people are ready and willing to work on this issue, and it's going to take community, it's going to take nonprofits, it's going to take us as leaders at the municipal level, but people are ready and willing to get into it. So I'm really excited about that and really excited that we have this example here in our community of people who have got a citizen science program going.
All right, I have no more speakers, so I'm just going to reiterate the motion, and then we're going to call for the vote. So the motion put on the floor was that Policy and Strategy Committee recommends to Municipal Council that Municipal Council approve conducting a 3-year reoccurring water sampling of Sherbrooke Lake and tributaries, adopting the same regime that was used for the baseline program. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Opposed is Councillor Bell, Councillor Hubley, and myself. Motion is carried. Okay. And we have another motion under the same topic. Would somebody be willing to bring forward that motion? Councillor Oikel.
To the Chair, Deputy Mayor Vino, and members of council, I move that the Policy and Strategy Committee recommends to Municipal Council that Municipal Council direct the sustainability staff to develop an educational program that will educate all lakeside property owners and lake users to help them understand the actions they can take to protect lake health. And I so move.
Put on the floor by Councillor Oikel, seconded by Councillor Moore. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Oikel.
I really support this. For one thing, our staff said that they can do it. So they obviously have the time. And the fact that it's going to go to everyone, not just specifically for Sherbrooke Lake. And I really think that with all the social media and the other methods that we have at our disposal, right, that it would be best served in-house.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Burns.
I just wanted to point out that, like, I know a lot of what I heard during land use planning was about lakes, and people see the lakes and the beauty of the municipality and the county largely connected to those lakes and the surrounding areas. And I also have a very strong feeling that our residents, with good information, make good decisions. And I've been a big fan of letting people make their good decisions rather than trying to impose larger scale regulations on them. When I look at our overall zoning schemes and other schemes versus the ability for people to be educated and make good decisions themselves, to me, this just helps with the idea that people with the right information will make the right decisions. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer, especially as it applies to the entire municipality. I like this part of it more than I like the first motion we just voted on. So I'll be supporting it for that reason.
Seeing no further hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Opposed is Councillor Brooks. Motion is carried. Go down to Administration Department, 9.3.1, Proposed Amendments to Policy 002 Committees. And we have our Municipal Clerk, April Wynot Lonis, to report.
This is a very short, quick report item, and it's regarding some actions out of the November 18th Finance Committee meeting, where council gave direction to staff to amend the terms of council members sitting on different committees and boards. A part of that discussion, also, there was a request for the nominating committee term to be amended from a one-year term to two-year term. So the nominating committee term is set by policy and is required to have that term amended within that policy, and that's what this is. You will see attached in the agenda is the policy with the quick amendments. I took the liberty at the time to look through it because it hasn't been reviewed, and did the plain language and some clarity around some housekeeping amendments. They don't change the intent of the policy, but the main piece is that it's changing the term from 1 to 2 year term. And if council wishes to proceed with that, then the motion is basically saying a 7-day notice, and it will be on the council agenda for upcoming meeting next following week.
Thank you. Can somebody bring forward this motion? Mayor McLean-Weil.
Yeah, to the chair, Deputy Mayor Vino, and members of council, I move that the Policy and Strategy Committee recommends to Municipal Council that Municipal Council adopt amendments to Policy 002, committees as presented, and hereby gives 7 days' notice of Council's intention to adopt on November 25th, 2025.
Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Brooks. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. We'll go down to 9.3.2, Implications of Provincial Legislation Changes on Municipal Privacy Responsibilities, Bill 150, Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And Alex Demerick, our Deputy CAO, will report on that.
Good morning, committee members. I can be similarly brief as well. The province has changed some legislation which has new responsibilities for the municipality. It is important, obviously, to protect the privacy of our residents. We do hold sensitive information, but these changes will add responsibility for your municipal staff. We are in a fortunate spot in our region in that the town of Bridgewater received a federal grant a couple of years back, which required them to undertake some enhanced privacy assessments, put in some extra systems. So they've had a full-time person dedicated to this work, and they have developed the types of systems that are required by this new legislation. There is a proposal afoot for this to be managed as a shared regional service through the Municipal Joint Services Board. So we wanted to make MODL Council aware that the provincial legislation change has added new responsibilities for us, and we will recommend to council once you get a proposal from the MJSB to support it. It's a far more efficient and effective way to address this than trying to add this specialty on our own.
Thank you. This was an information item, no motions to come from it, but is there any questions for Alex? Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Alex. Can you just give me a little bit more information about that? What are the implications? Is that a staff position that would be shared? Is it a shared information warehouse for all of our constituents? Can you just talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, that's a great question. The proposal will likely be around a staff position to help develop. It's more around policies around data management. So there are things like ensuring that none of our third-party service providers have servers that are hosting data outside. We regularly do that kind of work ourselves, but we don't have sometimes it requires us to go a step further in terms of who are the third-party providers. Also, having privacy impact assessments done before you start a new program so that before you get into new work, you're identifying what kind of data will you be collecting and how will you be protecting that data. So it is more around the policy and procedure and systems rather than IT data security. It's obviously related, and it is also related to freedom of information requests. So there had been a proposal a couple years back to combine all three of those into a shared service, but it did get complex because there's that's many other fields, and at the time Bridgewater had a higher privacy requirement than we did, and the other partners in the MJSB. So for that and a couple of other reasons, the shared service didn't proceed at that time. So what we believe the MJSB will be coming forward with is just this procedural policy and structures that are going to be required to meet the legislation. And there may be potential in the future for combining that with IT security and freedom of information. But at this time, because of the different demands on freedom of information and the different IT needs, it doesn't make sense to combine all of those right now.
Seeing no further hands, we'll move down to 9.4, Planning and Development Services, 9.4.1, Household Water Supply Upgrade Program Financing Budget, and Tom, not Tom, Abi, our Sustainability Manager, is going to present on that topic.
Give me 1 second, please. No. Do you want to help me out? We'll go with as is. Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. I am presenting on water supply upgrade financing program, some funding request, and some of the options we've been exploring to see if we could improve our program. And it will be followed by recommendations and some alternative options for council to pick from. Executive summary, to give you all an overview. As you all would know, this summer was pretty dry. We had seen severe to extreme droughts in 2025, which had led to a sharp rise in water shortages, especially many households being left on dry wells. And the financing program, if you may recall, beginning this year in January, Council had approved about $600,000 for the financing program. Some of that funding got used up during the initial 3 months, Jan, Feb, March, and the starting budget for the fiscal 2025-26 was somewhere around $521,000, and out of which we have now 29 residents who have signed customer agreements that have almost used all of our committed funds that was put aside or allocated for the program, and with only about $5,000 remaining uncommitted. Right now for the program, we have about 40 participants who are still pending agreements. That represents about $800,000 in demand. And the staff request today in front of you is to provide additional $900,000 from general operating reserves as a top-up for the program to keep it running through the end of March 2026. To a bit of a brief why the program matters. As you all know, most of MODL households rely on private wells. We do have some emergency relief services like water coupons program. Households could also take showers at LCLC, but all of these emergency relief options still do not meet their full household needs, such as bathing or laundry or some of the other fixtures. So this low interest financing program still plays a significant role in bridging that gap by providing low interest financing and an option for households to have a permanent whole home water solutions. These financing programs have lien secured loans that protect public funds while allowing capital to recycle back to the reserve. As for 2025 climate context, what we have been looking is as in the summer, that has left large parts of South Shore at a 40 to 42% deficit, which we received below normal precipitation. We have seen some rain showers that certainly has improved surface water levels in rivers in central and eastern Nova Scotia, but not as much so in the southwest region. Groundwater recovery still lags behind the surface water recovery. The trend shows the near-term precipitation is likely going to remain above average, but still it is expected to still see high demand for permanent upgrades over the near term. Right now, I think the core challenge, besides the funding request that we face with the program, is the liquidity and affordability. Although the loans itself are relatively safer because they are lien secured loans with very low credit risk. But the real constraint here is actually the liquidity, because how quickly the principal comes back to the reserve that would allow us to provide the financing to extra households each year. While at the same time, as you'll know, these upgrades do not generate any monthly bill savings, such as the Clean Energy Financing Program, which does. So the monthly affordability also remain critical as you all assess these options to ensure that the access still remain broad for a majority of households in the municipality. So what staff did was staff explored about 4 options, mostly for the repayment term options, and analyzed what the monthly payment terms, what the monthly payments would look like if we move to that particular term option, and what the benefits we could get through that term option, and what could be the risks and trade-offs we may have to deal with. So the option 1 or A is what about we reduce the 15-year term to 5-year and add a hardship clause. So what that would do, it would certainly increase the payments, which would become somewhere around $350, assuming all of it's illustratively $20,000 loan draw at a 2% interest rate. So the monthly payments could increase to about $351, which would be increase of about 172% versus the current 15-year term. The benefits, of course, it is going to help us get the fastest capital recycling. The money is coming back to the reserves much more quickly compared to the current 15-year that would allow us to serve additional households per year, somewhere around 9, which I will also show in the following slides in the table. And of course, residents will be paying much lower interest over their loan, length of the loan period. And the hardship clause would also allow an extensions for households that may be facing genuine financial stress. But there also comes risks and trade-offs with that option. One of this is, of course, the highest monthly payment that would come with this option. That could also increase the risk of payment difficulty with many of the households. And because as a caution, you would know that we don't do credit checks for these programs. So the payment default risk could also increase with this option. And we also, what could happen is the participation itself could maybe skew towards higher and more stable income. So it's like if you increase significantly per month income, chances are like more high income or upper middle income who can afford higher payments will flow through. And the lower income folks that can filter through hardship clause, but the middle income folks could suffer relatively. The concern is there, so they will have to deal with this option. And because of the hardship clause, it is also, of course, going to increase a bit of finance staff's workload because they will have to review then hardship case by cases basis. Option B is to, what about we make it from 15 years, we make it 7 years for all. What this program, like this term option would do is it will increase per month's payments to about $255 a month. That would be almost double what the currently households are expected to pay on a 15-year term. The benefits it includes is, of course, a faster recycling when it is compared with 10 or 15 years. The single rule also simplifies the administrative operating or running the program, because like on a hardship, when you have, what would happen is like there could be partial number of people who may be on a different term, and some households would be on a, let's say, 5-year term. So the staff will have to manage the loan for longer terms on a different terms. But having a single term for all relatively simplifies the administrative burden. Payments are going to be moderately lower than 5-year option while still improving recycling. The risks that or trade-offs that come with this option is going to be higher monthly payment in comparison to 10 or 15 years, which could limit participation for some households. It also still does moderately increase the payment difficulty risk and or people going default on their payments in comparison to 10 or 15-year term option. Option C is, what if we make it 10-year for all? What this option would do, it will make per month payment to about $184, which would be increase of 43% from the current 15-year term. The benefits, it would include a broader affordability for a wide range of household incomes. And it would, of course, be also help capital recycling, make it faster in comparison to current 15 years. So it's going to reduce 5 years from the current term. So it's going to recycle relatively faster, but of course, much slower than 5 or 7 years. Because it is also going to be simple one term. Again, it is going to keep a uniform term, keeps administrative burden lower, and it's going to keep administration efficient, and decisions would be pretty much straightforward. The risk that comes with this option is the recycling is going to be much slower than the 5 or 7 year term. So liquidity gains may only be modest. So that would limit us how many additional households we can provide financing to per year. And some households may still feel payment pressure, but it will still be much lower than 7 or 5 or 7 year terms. The last option is to just keep it as is, like not make any change. And the challenge, as I said in the beginning, is right now, the benefits, of course, with this option is that it offers the lowest monthly payments for all households. So it is affordability-wise top-notch. And it is also relatively easier for residents to manage with their existing budgets, and we wouldn't require any changes to the current program design or administration. But the risk or the challenge that comes with this option is the slowest capital recycling that also adds longest queues for applicants and the greater likelihood of recurring pressure on general operating reserves and future top-up requests from council. And it also, of course, keeps the municipal capital tied for the longer period in comparison to the other term options. To summarize all of these 4 options, so this is what in a table form looks like, what the monthly payments would be for each of those options, what is the percentage-wise increase on their monthly payments when you compare it with a 15-year term period. So the option A, 5-year plus hardship clause, would increase the monthly payment to about $350 from the current $129 approximately, an increase of 172%, and the remaining so on. And we also looked at how many additional households we can realistically serve based on the individual term options. So for this illustrative, since we are requesting $900,000 funds, so we compared with that $900,000, assuming $20,000 loan draw by per household or per applicant. So option A, theoretically, it will help us serve 9 additional households per year. The reason I say theoretically, because it also has a hardship clause element to this. So meaning number of applicants that gets that extension would also shape up the real average term of that option. So for example, if every 4 applicant out of every 10 new applicants gets an extension, the program itself is going to operate or function more like a 7-year program, as opposed to being a pure 5-year program. The option B, 7-year, we will be able to serve extra 6.4 households, so roughly about 6 households. And option C with 10-year, well, about 4 households served additional per year, and so on. And affordability, we also looked at some of the census data, because affordability is a subjective thing. What may be affordable for one person may not necessarily be affordable for other person, and vice versa. So we relied on census data to look at what is our income distribution across the municipality. And it turns out our median after-tax household income is somewhere around $60,000, and about 26% of those households are single person or one-person households, and their median income is about $30,000. And about 29% of residents are seniors, age 65 plus, with higher low-income prevalence. And about 60% of households have after-tax income below $70,000. That does tell something about our income distribution. And when we look at affordability reference points, what does this payment, like monthly proportionate, would be like per month's proportion, like all of those income brackets. So for example, if a household income is around $40,000, which is about 27% of our households in our municipality, in different terms, for example, if they're on a 15-year term, their monthly payment would be about 3.9% of their share or proportionate of their monthly income. And if they are on a 5-year term, this monthly payment would be 10.5%, which is significantly high. And so on for the other income brackets. So overall, payment distribution-wise, if you look at 15-year term, the monthly income, like the loan payment proportion, is going to be about 2 to 4% monthly income for a 15-year term, 3 to 6% for a 10-year term, and 4 to 8% of their monthly income if it is a 7-year term, and about 6 to 11% if it is a 5-year term. So council really has to, as they evaluate all these options, has to look at what affordability, because again, like these loans doesn't bring any cost savings, such as the energy savings, like the energy efficiency programs would do. So these percentages do matter or play a role. In context, like with that in mind, to summarize in conclusion, our CAO recommends that council adopts option A. So we reduce our 15-year term to 5 years for all the new agreements starting January 1, 2026, which is a new year. And we also add a hardship clause that will allow term extensions based on demonstrated financial stress so households may have. And this approach, what this would do is maximizes recycling, so our money is going to recycle much, much faster while protecting lower income households through case-by-case relief. Some of the other recommended changes, since we will be going to open the bylaw for the term change, staff recommends that we remove the stacking provision that we right now provide through our bylaw, stacking with the clean energy financing program. So at the time when the program was designed, it was assumed that not all households will draw the full $20,000, and they may want to stack it up with clean energy financing program. They may want to do some home energy efficiency upgrades. But if we choose to have a different term for the clean, like the well financing program, it would become an administrative, like super, like burdensome to manage like a full package of loans that has two different terms. It will become administratively very challenging. So to avoid that confusion and to keep it simple, staff recommends removing that provision. So households would typically be allowed just one financing at a time, and once they pay off that financing, they can always apply for another municipal financing. And some of the other amendments that would include accessibility changes, some of the numbering would change if we would remove that section from the bylaw, and some of the formatting changes. And there's also one cross-reference right now that is cross-referencing the lending rate of 2% to a different policy, but we are making that change across all of our upcoming bylaw changes to tie it to a fees policy. So all the things that we charge residents should reflect in our fee policy, and we are standardizing that. So that would also come along with some of the other recommended changes. Besides, staff also wanted to highlight that this is not one option that we have been providing to our residents to overcome the water scarcity challenge. There have also been many other water relief services that municipality has provided to its residents, especially in 2025. Through Water Coupons program, retailers were paid over $18,000 in comparison to last year's about $2,800, which is significant increase. And more than 25,000 4-liter coupons were issued, which roughly to about 500 households, delivering over 100,000 liters of bottled water. For LCLC, like Lunenburg Community Lifestyle Center, I guess, Lunenburg County Lifestyle Center, showers, LCLC in short, as you all know. The usage, again, has significantly increased this year in comparison to last year. For the month of August, last year, for example, 83 persons took showers. This year it was 277. And similarly, in September, we saw a huge spike. We also had set up a temporary water fill station at Municipal Services Building, as you all know, which has delivered or dispensed over 64,000 liters to date. As for latest update, as you all would know, we have also provided a solution to prevent winter freezing, and the resident will still be able to access that service during the winter months. So that water fill station has been moved inside of the Municipal Services Building. I'm sure the communication is still going to happen, and the more broader communication will happen, and more residents will be made aware of this change. But it is commendable, like the amount of different services that municipality has offered and continues to do so whilst residents face challenging times with their well water or drinking water. To summarize and to conclude, overall, these are the recommendations, and I will also shed light on alternative options that council may have. So as for recommendations, staff is requesting an additional $900,000 from the general operating reserve to allocate for the program and to allow the applicants who are still in the queue to move through and upgrade their wells. And as part of amending the bylaw 047, establish a 5-year standard repayment term for new agreements, changing from current 15-year, and also add a hardship clause that will allow extensions. And all this change is made to be in effect from 1st of January 2026. And Also remove the stacking provision with the clean energy financing to keep it simple. Only one municipal financing is allowed at a time. And some of the other housekeeping amendments as discussed before. As for alternative options, number one is council could approve a smaller amount than $900,000. This would put less pressure on the reserve, but of course this would also mean less households will be able to less household will be served through the financing option. In regards to repayment term or Senate term, council may also choose from other options, for option B, C, and D. And alternatively, third option, council may direct staff to make any other changes as deemed appropriate. So we conclude my presentation and open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Abi. And before we turn it over to council members, our CEO has some comments to make.
Abi, could you just, the presentation's gone. Can you put it back on and just go to the recommendation, please? So I just wanted to make a few comments. One, with this investment of $900,000, we're going to be about $1.4 million invested in the well financing program. So what we looked at and what we're focusing on is the sustainability of the program. We cannot continue to dump hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars into this financing program every year. So the goal that we focused on was making the program sustainable. And that's where we landed on the 5 years. At this point, there's no correlation to suggest that this is primarily being accessed by low-income residents. We haven't operated it long enough to see, but what we have been able to look at would suggest that 15% would be about the high level, is my understanding, where we can look at that information. Because there's no financing. They don't apply for a credit check. They just apply for the program. So when we looked at it, where we landed with the 5-year standard repayment does put the costs up. But to cover the people that have lower income, we want to put the exemption clause in. The exemption clause will be directly tied to the property tax rebate program, same household standard. So we're not remaking anything. We have that data. We have, I believe, over 1,000 residents have applied and been awarded property tax rebates. So we have that database already. So we think that if we go to the 5-year standard repayment, which allows us to sustainably provide financing for about 9 residents to go through this program every year without putting new money in, that level of sustainability, we think, does help address this problem. We're looking at other options. So we're not just doing this financing program and stopping. At Mayors and Wardens yesterday, we talked about some options on how we can address the regional issue of water security. This program would be one tool in doing that. So we think that the 5-year standard, although as Abi has indicated, it puts the prices up by providing the exemption for those people that will also qualify for the property tax rebate program. We can address their financing issue by defaulting them to the 10-year. Ultimately, it's up for each resident to decide whether they can afford it. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you can't afford this program anyway, because you don't have an extra $100 a month, even at the 15-year. So there's a set of the public that this program won't help because they don't even have the money to afford this. That's something we still have to look at, and that's where our water coupon program provides assistance. We're trying to work with the Bridgewater Public Service Commission to adjust their bulk filling station to allow for residential filling. We're looking at what the municipality can do, and that activity is more focused on the people that can't even access this watering program. So we think that it's my recommendation that the 5-year standard repayment term for new agreements, the hardship clause, which we'll draft in the policy, which will reflect back to the property tax exemption program, will allow us to meaningfully address water scarcity by providing a well drilling program that is sustainable to the extent that it's going to allow us to provide about 9 additional wells drilled per year on an ongoing basis without putting more money into the program, which will be holding about $1.4 million tied up for, some of it's for 15 years, some of it would be for 5 years, but the program will continue until the need isn't there, and that's going to be there for quite some time. So happy to, and Abhi did most of the work. The recommendation is mine, but all the research and all the the written material is all Abhi.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks and then Councillor Hubley.
I think Tom answered my question. I was just going to ask Abid, what would happen if we used this recommendation, but we saw 50% exercise the hardship clause? How does that impact the program? Either one of you can answer it.
Yeah, I think as I had mentioned, so for example, even 4 applicants out of 10 applicants get that hardship extension, that would mean the program is now running at a 7-year term as opposed to 5-year term. So it may not be able to serve 9 additional households. It would rather be 6 additional households. So the more people are put on 10-year term, it is going to behave more like an extended term as opposed to being, and also adding administrative burden while reviewing those applications. So it does have like pros and cons, like with each option. So some of this could be.
Councillor Hubley.
Thank you. The hardship clause is what sells it to me, because it can include all residents. Question, can the resident pay this off earlier without penalty or? Okay, thank you.
And just in case anybody's listening, the staff response was
Yes.
yes, they can.
Yes.
They can do that. I don't think the mic was on
Sorry.
when you answered. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just a quick question and then a follow-up. I know that there's a lot of municipalities offering well financing programs. What is the standard or the most common rate of repayment that you see in those programs? And the second question I have is, do any of them have like a cap for all, like a means tested income cap, where if you have a certain income that you can't access the program at all?
Yep, so we had done some internal jurisdictional scan, and there are about 9 municipalities in Nova Scotia that currently offer similar well financing programs, and all of them have minimum 10-year payback term. MODL is the only outlier, which has 15. The 8 others have 10-year. And in regards to like a means testing or income cap, we came across only one municipality, which is East Hants, that have an upper income threshold of $100,000 household income, meaning anybody who is making more than $100,000 is ineligible for their financing program. But if a household income is below $100,000, they can access the financing.
I just ask because I feel uncomfortable with how we've designed this program, because, you know, water security right now is an emergency. We're looking for long-term fixes for people. And I just don't know why, like, this isn't a universal program. We can't offer it to everyone. So when we're designing a program, then should we be thinking about who needs to access it the most? And to me, that would be people who have maybe less access to other financing tools. And, you know, like I was just, you know, looking up like home equity line, for example. If you had equity in your home and you could access through your mortgage a home equity line, what percent would that be? And it would be higher, but I'm just wondering who we're targeting with this program, and I'm a little concerned that by changing the repayment terms to 5 years and then making it, the hardship clause means tested for 70,000, 75,000?
Property tax exemption.
Yeah, what's the upper level for that?
60,000.
60,200.
60,000. Like, as you mentioned in your analysis, that's going to miss a whole bunch of people of middle incomes. So I just don't understand why we are not trying to target a little more closely people who can't access other financing tools at this point. That's my big question with this.
So I think I'll start. So we're not aware of any correlation between low income and the need for drilled wells. So we don't know whether that would provide a high level of assistance or little assistance or no assistance. So what we responded to initially was simply a backlog of people that were saying, we have dry wells and we need help. And so our response was to create a well financing program that wasn't income-based. There was no thresholds, there was no credit check. You could get the loan and you can drill the well and you'd repay it over 15 years, which was our quick response. And we set it to a financing level that dropped the amount incredibly low and tied up municipal resources for a decade and a half. And the problem didn't go away. And then we had another year with drought, and we have almost, 40, is it 40 people on the wait list? Plus 24 applications that were taken and we can't fund because we're out of money. So then it was the recommendation here is for almost $1 million. Keep in mind, that money is on top of our PACE money, which is also tied up for home upgrades for energy. So if council wants us to look at creating something that is available for low income or property, there's no low in it, it's property tax rebate program. We could do that, but that's going to pause this because we can't finance everything. So if council's direction is come back with a program that focuses on certain income thresholds, we can do that. But that would mean the people that have applied for the funding and we're out of money won't get it right now. And the people that are on the waiting list won't get it right now. And we'll have to research it and come back. So that's there may be long-term interest in doing that, but short-term it would be challenging. But once this money is spent, it would be challenging for the municipality to come up with another pot of money. So we have the most aggressive property tax rebate program in the province, at least from my perspective, and we put in about $750,000 a year on that. And then we have the PACE program, and now we have the well funding program, and we're tying up enormous amounts of municipal reserves at a time when we're drawing on the reserves for other projects at a higher rate, which is a whole other discussion. But the caution I would give council right now is if you want us to respond to the immediate emergency in a similar fashion to how we responded last year, we think this is the best way. Of course, council could say, drop the rate of return to 10 years. We'll accept that we can only do 3 houses per year after that. And then maybe work with the money in return to focus it on low income. But we're focusing on speed, on how we can get the most money out the door to help the most residents, taking into account that people that are going to qualify for the exemption, we're going to deal with them separately to allow for them to get a little lesser amount. But we just didn't have the time to really delve into a income-specific type of arrangement at this point. So that's why we are where we are.
Councillor Oikle.
Thank you. I'd like to discuss the stacking provision with clean energy financing. So the 40 people who are now on the wait list, if they have anything, any financing with clean energy financing, they're not going to be able to get this? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, so our clean energy, for clarification, our clean energy financing bylaw already doesn't allow concurrent financing. So if somebody has already has applied to clean energy financing, they have to repay that first before they could apply for well water financing. And so far we haven't received any application, like over the past 60 we have in the list, and over the past 29 or 30 whatever we have approved so far, none of them have applied for concurrent or stacking with clean energy financing. But removing this provision, because in our water supply upgrade program, we had provided that provision. It's like if somebody is applying for well water upgrade financing and they're not really using up the full $20,000, so whatever the remaining it would be, let's say they draw $10,000 to upgrade their well, they could utilize the remaining $10,000 to maybe do windows or some installation. They can stack that. But the problem would arise with different terms of the loan program. Should we change the term for our, let's say, well financing program, the package would be very difficult to administer. Like partial money would be on a different term. So it would be it wouldn't be feasible. So that's what staff recommend. If we are changing the term, it would be more simple administratively to not allow stacking. Just keep it simple. Only one financing allowed at a time. And this also protects, of course, liquidity. We also don't want people to take too much of loan and have that higher risk, like only what they can afford, trying to like keep the risk as much low as possible.
Thank you. I just needed to hear it again and understand it better. Thank you very much.
Mayor McLean-Weil, and then we will look for a motion to be put on the floor if there's no other speakers.
I want to just be public in my support for the recommendation about 5 years. We're responding here to an emergency situation. If we were going to write policy and direct it, and we would have done a lot of research as to who really can afford and who can't afford. But we're responding to an emergency. And this water issue is not over, and I think recognizing that the sustainability of the program is an issue. There are a lot of other conversations that we need to have about water and how we're going to deal with droughts as we go forward. And our other municipalities around us are interested in those discussions, and water's not going away. So I think we need to really be careful about how we consider this recommendation, and I think this is being responsible. It aligns with our other policies around our property tax rebate program. So we are being consistent in how we view our residents, so I think that's important. But as I said, if we were writing this from scratch and doing all the research to see who needed it, who can afford it, where are the issues, what parts of our district are more prone to this than others, what are the other issues related to water quality that need to be addressed, we would take months to do that. So I think we have to put this in the context of what we're dealing with right now, and this is trying to get people in a place that they can be sustainable with their water supply, and this seems to be, I think, the most reasonable way to do that.
Councillor Bell.
You ready to accept the motion?
Yes, if you would put the first motion on the floor, thank you.
to the Chair, Deputy Mayor Vino, and members of council. I move that the Policy and Strategy Committee recommendation to Municipal Council, that Municipal Council approve an additional $900,000 from the General Operating Reserve for the Water Supply Upgrade Program. I so move.
Moved by Counselor Bell. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Moore. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Can somebody bring forward the next part of that motion? Or not the motion, sorry. The item for the household water supply. Counselor Moore.
To the Chair, Deputy Mayor Vino, and members of council, I move that the Policy Strategy Committee recommends to Municipal Council that Municipal Council direct staff to prepare amendments to Bylaw 047 Portable Water Supply Upgrade Lending Program to establish a 5-year standard repayment term for the new agreements with a hardship clause allowing term extensions effective January 1st, 2026. And B, remove the stacking provision with clean energy financing and align with the bylaw 031 so that only one municipal financing may be active on a property at a time. And C, make housekeeping amendments including accessibility updates, numbering and formatting, and cross-reference the lending rate to policy 058 fees, replacing the current reference to policy 068.
Moved by Counselor Moore, seconded by Counselor Bell. Discussion on the motion. Counselor Brooks.
My concern is similar to Councillor Smith's. I'm just still concerned about who is going to be accessing this program. I know we're in an emergency situation, but I feel uneasy about subsidizing people who can go out and drill these wells themselves. And that's as frank as I can be about that. You know, there are members in my district who could do many wells themselves. And so the idea of that tax dollar going to subsidize them is tough when I know that there are many people in my district who cannot afford to do that. They'll have a hard time paying it back in 5, 10, and 15 years. So I get the balance we're trying to strike. I'm uncomfortable with who is allowed to participate in the program at the moment.
Counselor Smith.
I just want to address the need for speed here. Someone in my district had posted about, not having water for a couple of months now, I think it is, and the struggle that they were having. And they had said that when someone came to look at their well, they said that the wait times were 2 to 3 years for a drilled well. I thought, that doesn't sound quite right, so I'm going to check it. So I called someone in the valley who services our area and had quite a long discussion about the wait lists for drilling wells. And normally they booked out, this company normally books out 6 to 8 weeks. Now they're booking out 4 to 6 months. So I understand this is an emergency, and I would love to have people get their drilled wells as fast as possible, but I just don't think that's going to happen anyway. Even if we could approve this program, approve all of those applications today. There's time for us to make a more considered analysis, and I am very, very uncomfortable with not having an income cap on this program when we have limited funds. It's not a universal program, so why aren't we making sure that the people who need the financing tool that we're offering can get it? And I would just like to see a bit more analysis on this, considering an income cap on the program. We have time. Let's let's, be as responsible as we can with this program because people do need it.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I will be supporting the motion as it's currently on the floor. I think staff has done a very good analysis of the issue. It's trying to get those on the waiting list to have a project happen and have the financing available to them. I do understand that there are a number of people in my district as well as others who currently, even after this rain, still have no water. I think the mayor has made it very clear why we're trying to, I don't want to use the word fast track, but to try to make something happen as quickly as we can. And I'll be supporting it exactly the way it is. That's not to say that at a further future date, we can't look at caps if that makes people feel better. But I think it's important to get this program out and on the availability list to those, especially to those who are on the waiting list, as quickly as possible. And I'm not opposed to a cap, but I don't want to include it today. Thank you.
Councillor Reinhardt.
Thanks. I appreciate all the work that went into this report. I spend a lot of time talking to people in the community about retrofits, and that's what this is. This is another type of retrofit. And the consensus I get that is that we need to make it easier for people to do this and not harder. So I do feel uncomfortable about making a change that would make the program inaccessible to a lot more of our residents. So yeah, I'm struggling to support the recommendation as it is. From the report, the 10-year change seemed to be a lot more balanced in terms of affordability and recycling. So I would lean more towards that if we were going to make a change. But I also agree with some of the general comments about the program in general. Looking into a cap, I think, is very important to make sure that, this program is doing, what we want it to and helping the people where they need help.
Okay. Councillor Brooks.
Just to tag that once more, there are constituents, to Councillor Smith's comment about well drillers, there are folks in my district who, if they want a well drilled, they're going to go to Halifax or bring someone in from New Brunswick, they're going to get their well drilled whenever they want their well drilled. So I just want this program to help the folks that can't get that help. That's my concern. I'm really struggling with voting for that without a cap on it. It's tough for me.
So we do have a motion that has been moved and seconded on the floor with nobody bringing in an amendment to that motion. I'm going to call for the question after I have one more speaker with their hand up. Councillor Oigel.
Thank you. If we pass this, can then Councillor Brooks or Councillor Smith make another motion to have staff look into creating a policy regarding a cap? Or does it need to be part of this motion?
Yes, you could pass a separate motion directing us to examine the issue. But I would again caution, if this is something you want on our work plan, we have to identify what comes off the work plan. So, of course, council can make this a priority, and we'd push it to the top, but that would mean other things come off that council has already told us to do. So if council feels it's a priority, then I would recommend that that direction be given. But if council feels that this step will allow us to have some breathing room to complete other work that's being done, this could be brought back later. We can also monitor more closely where the people are applying for the exemptions, and if we see, if the number of property owners that are applying for the exemption are much greater than we think, which would demonstrate that lower income households are trying to access the program, we could bring that back to council and see what council wants to do to address that fact. So it's certainly, this isn't the end of everything, but every time we have to change the bylaw to do these things. So we could gather information as we move forward and then address it accordingly in the future.
And I guess as chair, I'm going to reiterate that instead of making a quick decision without thinking what needs to come off, we take some time to go away with that and decide if we're going to make changes to the program. I did see some hands over here. Councillor Burns?
Thanks. Yeah, listen, I talk about affordability around this table all the time, but there are programs targeted at different income groups, and there's only so many ways to help each income group. And what this is primarily geared towards, in the people who are going to be doing this, are the people who are, I would describe, lower to middle income people who their incomes are probably not going to qualify for a lot of low-income programs through the province. They're above that line. But the cost for them to go out and refinance their house in order to do this, because what we're really doing is talking about improving an asset and looking at affordability based on income coming in. To use our own terms, this is a capital improvement to their property, and the affordability of it is based on their income and ability to bring money in. If the bank is looking at it, that's how they're looking at it. And if you're going to refinance your house, you're going to have a prepayment policy or prepayment penalty of anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000 to pay out your fixed term mortgage that you have on your house right now to refinance it for a higher amount. So where this program helps people is it greases the skids so you have access to cash, presumably faster, without having the additional costs that you have to refinance your house. And it has the ability to do it at a lower interest rate, so over the term, you're paying less interest over the term. So where we're really saving money for people on affordability is less on the monthly payment, because like I struggle with this, because at first when I read this last night, I was like, the 10-year sounds more affordable. But in reality, the fluctuation of $150 a month in your budget, if you can't do that, you're in a larger affordability crisis that this program is not designed to attract overall. So I'd encourage people here, if the goal is to allow people to drill a well without having to go through all the extra hassle and costs that they might not otherwise do, like refinance a house, and this is that's what the program is designed to do. If we want to redesign a program for something that is geared towards providing options to lower income folks who have an asset that they would not otherwise qualify to refi because of their income, then that is a different program. And so if the solution here is more wells in the ground over the next 2 years as we start to look at what this problem is, then this is the way to go. And we can justify it on where we're saving money and allowing them to not have to refinance their house. But we're really looking at a couple of different issues with this, and what we're really saying here, if we do this, which I'm going to vote yes on, is we need more wells in the ground so the overall supports we're offering to people can be better targeted at people who would not otherwise get access to this program.
Okay. Councillor Brooks.
I could get behind this with Tom's suggestion of, like we build in a monitoring. We see, I could be completely wrong. If Councillor Burns is right and this is not being used by our upper earners, then wonderful, then we're okay. But I can't get behind this unless we're going to monitor it and have an ability to modify this program going forward. If we do, I feel we're doing our just duty, and that's fine. But without it, I can't support it.
I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed is Councillor Brooks, Councillor Smith, and Councillor Reinhardt. Motion is carried. We have no mayors, deputy mayors, or councillor matters, no added items to the regular agenda, and we do have a flag raising in a few minutes. So I'm going to suggest that we take a brief break, and we will return with our in-camera items after the flag raising ceremony. So our flag raising is at 11, so we have like 5 minutes to bathroom, coffee, refresh, but we're going to start right back in after the flag raising because we have 2 in-camera items and we're already behind. We are going to move right to in-camera discussions, and therefore I need somebody to move to go in camera. Moved by Mayor McLean-Weil, seconded by Councillor Burns. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is approved unanimously. We are now in camera. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. This concludes our agenda for the Policy and Strategy Committee. And once again, I would like to wish farewell wishes to Joanne Powers on her final minute taking of council meetings, and all the best on her retirement. Thank you.